On September 22, 2017, the Science and Technology Committee of the Georgia House of Representatives met to discuss the highly controversial voting machine technology that Georgia uses. Georgia State Elections Director Chris Harvey testified at that meeting. Witnesses are not sworn in before them testifying, and there are several past cases where they have not necessarily told the truth. Did this happen again on September 22nd? Many of those who attended the hearing reached a conclusion. Now you can hear a few minutes of key excerpts of his testimony and make your own decision.
I mean, we spent, if you look at, go back to June of this year, we had the most expensive congressional House race ever conducted, with, you know, a lot of national coverage. I didn't hear anything about the voting system. I didn't hear anything about problems with the voting system. That's all right.
On April 18th, the night of the special federal election, the national news media descended upon Atlanta. Fulton County experienced a 2-hour reporting delay, and the vote totals for John Ossoff jumped from about 50% down to a little bit lower than 50%, necessitating a runoff with Karen Handel, who had about 19% of the vote. Dozens of news articles questioned the results, as well as the breach that occurred at the Kennesaw State University Center for Elections Systems about a month earlier. Nearly everyone in Georgia who is an election observer has read at least one or more of those articles.
Going to the current law in Georgia, what does our law say in terms of specific mandates in terms of electronic voting systems? Is there language in statute that says you shall use an electronic system? What does the current law say about that?
397.3 essentially says thou shalt use DREs.
Here's the most recent version of the Georgia Election Code. As you can see, there is no code section 21.2.397. The law goes from 21.2.390 to 21.2.400. Did Mr. Harvey transpose the code numbers by accident? No, we checked OCGA 21.2.379.3.2. That section requires the state to furnish DREs to the counties by 2004, but it does not require the counties to actually use them. In fact, OCGA 21.2.366 allows the counties and municipalities to authorize the use of optical scan equipment by a majority vote at any regular or special meeting called for that purpose.
New states who've been making new technology purchases, and they've been buying in the last 5 years, the last 3 years, electronic only systems, or are they moving to something that produces a manual, reproducible, auditable ballot?
They're moving towards the ballot marking devices, clearly.
Ballot marking devices are special machines that states use to help the visually impaired vote. This is a map from Verified Voting of voting systems that are installed in the United States. No state has ever implemented only ballot marking devices for all voting machines. That would be extremely cost prohibitive, since it would require dozens of devices in each precinct instead of one ballot marking device and 1 or 2 optical scanners. That is why states have implemented optical scan equipment as their primary voting method, and no state has implemented only ballot marking devices.
Do you have any examples anywhere in Georgia where the number of ballots cast didn't match the people who actually showed up?
Not that I'm aware of, no, sir.
When the current Georgia voting system was implemented in 2002, Cobb County accidentally loaded 3,256 test votes from logic and accuracy testing into the live election results in November. The Cobb County officials caught the error and corrected it, but the machines allowed that to happen. They caught that error when they found out that the number of ballots cast did not match the numbers of voters who voted. In November 2008, Lowndes County Elections Director Deb Cox certified 947 test votes from logic and accuracy testing into the actual results. The error was not caught until state election officials checked the certified county results. They sent the results back to Elections Director, who filed a complaint with the State Election Board against voting machine technician Laura Gallegos for the problem. But Mrs. Gallegos was not present for the election night accumulation or the certification. Accumulation and certification is the responsibility of the Elections Director under Georgia law. That's OCGA 21270 and 212493. Nevertheless, Mrs. Gallegos was terminated, charged with violations, and spent thousands of dollars in attorney fees to defend herself. She received assistance from VoterGA members, eventually got the charges dropped and filed her own complaint. This is one of the most corrupt cases in Georgia electronic voting history. It resulted in an impeachment resolution being brought against Chris Harvey's superior, Sean LaGrua. She was the Inspector General who was hired by Karen Handel when Handel was the Secretary of State. But what was Chris Harvey's role? Chris Harvey argued the case against Mrs. Gallegos in June 2, 2009 at the State Election Board meeting. This was the hearing that referred the case to the Attorney General's office for the prosecution of Ms. Gallegos because the number of ballots cast did not match the number of voters, even though she had no responsibility for that process.
Has there been any major issues with Georgia's election system? Serious issues at this point?
There have not been.
There have been a series of major issues with the voting systems, in addition to the previously mentioned examples where the machines accepted test votes into the live election results. In 2004, two Bibb County machines in separate precincts lost over 200 votes when the election officials could not get the machines to accumulate their votes. In 2005, a Cobb County special purpose local option sales tax referendum appeared to be heading for defeat when the election problems halted the counting. And when the counting resumed, the SPLOS was declared to have passed by 114 votes out of 40,000 cast. But there were 285 lost votes on blank cast ballots, although the SPLOS was the only contest on the ballot. No one could offer a viable explanation as to why 285 voters would go to the polls and decide not to vote on such a controversial referendum. In 2011, another Cobb County SPLOS was also declared passed by 79 votes, with 95 lost votes on blank voted ballots. In verifiable votes cast, the mail-in votes, the SPLOS was defeated by a 60 to 40% margin. Over $1 billion in taxes were assessed in each of these two SPLOS in spite of those lost votes on the blank voted ballots. In 2008, Douglas County had an array of voting system issues and manually entered election results into the server. The results of 25,000 Douglas County Election Day ballots were placed into a spreadsheet reviewed in reports at home by an election board member named John Lawrence, who was, quote, not satisfied with some of the results, according to one witness. A Diebold contractor then re-entered the new results into the county servers the next day, and the outcome of two races changed. An investigation found no potential violations against the Douglas County Election Board member. Did Chris Harvey know about this? As his profile explains, Harvey was the chief investigator in the Office of Secretary of State under both Karen Handel and Brian Kemp. Harvey not only knew about the case, he was the Deputy Inspector General who produced the investigation summary that overlooked any potential violations by the Douglas County Election Board member.
Not only were the voter database information available, but even the passwords for some of the supervisors were available in a non-secured environment in these databases. Can you address that?
I can talk a little bit about that. I believe you're talking about the incident at Kennesaw State University.
Yes, sir.
They have essentially, that was part of their online server. The system that operates the voting system that generates that is an air-gapped offline system. So what was accessed was an online server. The server that actually operates and interacts with the voting system was never breached. So the old information that was on a server, which was certainly regrettable, which should not have happened, didn't really have anything to do with what was going on at the time. It was old information.
An affidavit from Internet security expert Logan Lamb explains that key election data was left exposed on the Center for Election Systems public website, including the GEMS election databases, documents with supervisor passwords, commands to access, create, and export election data, training videos on how to update county election servers, and even the entire voter registration database itself. Lamb explained how an attacker could gain access to this information and update most any election data desired. The Election Center Twitter feed shows that the center places elections data on public web server to distribute bulk updates to the counties. Therefore, it's not old information on their public web server, it's current information for any given election. County election offices log into the CES public web server to download election data such as express poll files. The procedure is explained in a recent email from County Elections Director obtained by VoterGA via an open records request. The counties download current information to run their elections from the same server that was breached.
And you mentioned that this server was air-gapped, meaning it wasn't connected to the internet. I want to make sure I explore the definition of that term. It was by itself, standalone.
You know, what I meant to say, if I wasn't clear, is that the server that was accessed was connected to the network. There are other devices. There's a completely offline set of equipment that they use when working with the voting system.
An internal email from the Center's director to the KSU Chief Information Security Officer explains that CES used their public web server for ballot building and other elections activities. Remarkably, they had no backup of this server, which contained separate folders accessible by each county. Additional emails from the Director and the Chief Information Security Officer show that they had to establish new procedures to upload election data to the Secretary of State's office to distribute the data to the counties, in lieu of the counties logging in and downloading the information directly over the internet from the CES public website. So the server the CES uses for much, if not all, of the voting system work is very much connected to the internet.
Thank you. Mr. Epstein also said that, if I'm remembering correctly, there was no evidence that any voting had been hacked. Do you believe that's true for Georgia?
Absolutely.
This is a copy of the VoterGA statistical analysis for the June 20th 6th District runoff. It provides us statistics indicating that the runoff may have been hacked and enough votes changed to affect the outcome of the Georgia 6th election. Since the study was not released until October 17th, we'll have to give Mr. Harvey the benefit of the doubt on this one. But the evidence of a potential hack, as cited in this study, has been available to him as the State Elections Director since June the 20th. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. When witnesses testify before the Georgia General Assembly, it's important that they tell the truth to the committee members, because those members are going to make decisions that impact all Georgians. In this case, did Chris Harvey tell the truth? We think the evidence speaks for itself.